All right, we're gonna get started. I'd like to thank everyone for attending day 2 of our Earth Week celebration brought to you by the Rosenstiel School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences, Marine Science Student Organization Sustainability Initiative. So we really wanted to come together and bring you guys an awesome community event, and we want to keep this experience just that, a positive community experience. So this is a no troll zone, so anyone who is not playing by the rules will be dismissed without warning. Okay, so today we have our Eco Eats talks are going to be about reducing your carbon footprint. We have two fun talks. One is about reducing your carbon footprint by biking through Miami. The other is through navigating secondhand sites. So stay tuned, and I'll let Mike take it over from here.
All right, hello everyone. Thank you, Kayla, for the introduction, and thank you for hosting the virtual Earth Week here this week. I am sharing my screen. Awesome. So for this talk, for the Eco Eats talk series, I want to review some of the essential information for people who are interested in taking up bicycle commuting as a means of sustainable transportation here in Miami. And I want to go over some safety recommendations, route options, and community resources for those interested. And afterwards, after Giovanni's talk, I hope we can have a discussion about safe bicycling and the corresponding safe streets movements here in Miami. So a little bit about me. I'm a PhD student in the Marine Biology and Ecology Department at Erasmus, and my graduate research is in the realm of coral conservation through genetics and microbiology. As many of you may know, reefs are among the most threatened ecosystems facing the effects of anthropogenic climate change, and so some of my interest in sustainability initiatives comes from wanting to try and address the root causes of reefs declines and thereby contribute to conservation. But Miami, as we live in, is one of the most vibrant cities in the United States for bicyclists, but really is limited also by a lack of safe bicycling infrastructure and an overabundance of cars and distracted drivers. So sometimes this creates a dangerous combination that can scare new cyclists away from beginning a bicycle commuting or considering a bicycle commuting lifestyle. So I'm originally from New Jersey, but I came to Miami for my undergraduate studies in 2012 and began bike commuting to Erasmus and more generally in Miami in 2013. And I still enjoy bicycle commuting as a practice that helps my physical and mental health and use it as a means to contribute to reducing my personal carbon emissions. So many of you are probably familiar with the graph on the left, which shows the relative effects of various individual choices we can make that affect our personal carbon emissions. And you may notice that the effect of choosing a car-free or reduced car lifestyle is among the more impactful choices one can make, along with choosing to eat a plant-based diet and avoiding air travel, though not as important over the course of one's life of having one fewer child. Cool. You may also be aware of the enormous amount of public space that is allocated to personal car travel, especially in dense cities and urban centers such as Miami, and how much more efficient, safe, and sustainable our transportation networks could be made by emphasizing public transit and bicycle transit modes and moving away from strictly car-centric design. So this graph shows a quick comparison of notable Florida cities with the percentage of commuters that bike shown on the x-axis and the color indicating the relative size of the city. And as you can see, there's only a small percentage of the total population that chooses to bike commute in the large cities of Miami, Orlando, and Jacksonville at the bottom, relative to the more bike-friendly locations, such as Key West and Gainesville. I think this might be some sort of suppressed demand where the good weather in Florida makes people want to bike, but the population and large cities and poor urban design makes it difficult for the majority of people to enjoy bicycling as a mode of transportation. So a couple key safety tips before we start talking about actually biking in Miami. Generally, first and foremost, wear a helmet. This is not just only for your safety or if you're ever in a situation where a car or vehicle comes into contact with you, but also for those bicycle accidents you just can't predict, such as when you go over a curb awkwardly, have a flat or lose control. And you're also going to make sure to avoid those situations is that your bike or whatever you choose to ride that day is in safe riding conditions. So that means checking the tires, brakes, etc. And have a plan also for a flat tire if you're riding in Miami. So either carry spare tubes and a pump, or have a plan to phone a friend who can help you out. Also, if you're riding at night or near dawn or dusk, remember to have front and rear lights so that you can see and that you can be seen by those around you. And then it also is a good idea to use the proper hand signals to indicate when you're turning or stopping, so that other cyclists and cars can anticipate what your next moves are going to be. And also remember to be courteous of pedestrians, especially the walkers and runners who in some places might be using the same multi-use paths as you, and remember to obey the traffic rules of the road, namely stopping at stop signs, red lights, being just generally aware of and responsive to your environment while you're biking, especially in a busy city. And a bit of personal advice, remember to be vocal and emphasize safety. Make sure that you can be seen, be heard, that the cars and bicyclists around you can anticipate your movements. This will make it easier for you to move about safely and without any unexpected surprises. So another quick review slide. This is the key bicycle anatomy. There are many different styles of bike, but all of them really have the same basic components that you're going to want to make sure are in working order before going for a ride. These include the saddle, the seat, the handlebars, the front fork that connects to the wheels, which we're going to make sure the spokes are in good condition, the tires are inflated, the tubes are inflated actually, and the tires are in good condition. We're going to want to check the chain, drive, derailleur, the gear cassettes to make sure that you can provide energy to the bike that's going to move you, as well as the brakes and brake cables that'll give you control and help you stop when you expect to stop. So for those of you who may be considering bike commuting as a means of getting around in South Florida, in Miami, or more broadly, there are many different kinds of bikes, many different types of bikes, and it really is up to you to choose which style is best for you and what would suit your needs and desires in choosing to bike. Sport and racing bikes are popular and common here in flat areas like Miami, where you'll see large pelotons of riders in the early morning, really going over the causeway. Road bikes are a less, optimized style of bike compared to touring bikes, which are built more for longer distance or bike trekking, which can carry lots of saddlebags or other gear. Mountain bikes are built for more off-roading, which is possible at the Virginia Key bike trails nearby at Erasmus. And then another very popular style of bikes is the hybrid or city bikes, which offer a more comfortable posture and control. There's other types of bikes, including folding bikes and unicycles, but those are for each person to find their own preferred style and what works for them, and works in terms of your commuting goals as well. So also in Miami, you'll encounter many different types of bike paths and lanes. So this information presented here is from BikeSafe, a program hosted at the Miller School of Medicine's Neuroscience Center that really works to provide excellent information on bike safety for people of all ages, and it's focused towards elementary school children to make sure that they can interact safely when biking or walking in Miami-Dade County. So there's links to some bike safe information at the end of the slides as well, which I assume will be made available. So without further ado, I'd like to spend a little bit of time talking about some of the main routes and corridors to get between the Gables campus and the Erasmus campus, which I assume most of the audience is interested in discussing a little bit more. Some of the main corridors here are the M path, or soon to be called the Underline, which runs from the Gables campus out to the Rickenbacker Causeway, and then the Commodore Trail, which can take you from south near around Cocoa Plum Circle along Main Highway to connect to Bayshore Ave, and then again onto the Rickenbacker Causeway. So people who are trying to do the route from Coral Gables to Erasmus or vice versa, generally, once you've settled on which route or which area is best for you, feels most comfortable for you, this can take about 35 to 50 minutes, and it's around 8.5 miles going either way. So Gables to Rasmus, around 8.5 miles, 35 to 50 minutes. Rasmus to Gables, around 8.5 miles with the same time. The causeway itself out to Rasmus is around 3.5 miles distance once you pass the toll booth, and it can take around 15 to 30 minutes, depending if you're using the bicycle lanes in the street or you're preferring to stick on the multiple use path, which has protected the wooden bollards there. So it's up to each person to decide which potential route might fit your comfort levels or your style of bike. And although each of these routes has their benefits, each also has some cons or some has some negative things that could be said about them as well. Namely, the M path is under construction to become the underline and isn't currently very accessible at all locations. Coral Gables doesn't have the best emphasis on safe bike infrastructure or protected bike lanes in particular at the present moment. And the Commodore Trail is really only a trail in concept only in certain parts, such as along South Bayshore Avenue. So the first of these that I wanted to touch on is the Underline, which is by far the most ambitious proposal and project underway in Miami for improving bicycle and transit connectivity. The project aims to convert the existing M path, which runs under the Miami Metro Rail at the Brickell Station to Dadeland South Station, into a far more attractive and versatile public space. They have met $100 million of their funding goals to comprise about 2/3 of their total target of $155 million at present. And they have begun construction in phase 1 and phase 2 near Brickell Station and Vizcaya Station along the M path. Unfortunately, given the current situation, the most current information I could find on the website is that the M path is blocked at Southwest 13th Street due to the ongoing construction there. So while the vision is grand and the hope that this can improve the bicycle network connectivity into downtown Miami, the construction is still ongoing. So this is one element to be aware of. In Coral Gables, to zoom in on that campus area, what's important to know is that there's 3 good areas to cross US 1. The first of which is the overpass near the University Metro Station, which has an elevator to carry bikes over as well. And then the 2 intersections with reliable crosswalks to the north and south of the university on US 1. In this area, if you're looking to connect to the Commodore Trail near Cocoa Plum Circle, you're also going to want to know where the bridges that cross the Coral Gables waterway canals are, which generally have sidewalk or some sort of speed reducing measure so that bikes can pass through comfortably with cars through these areas as well, such as circles here on either side of the Riviera Canal. At the Gables campus, there's a number of sites that if people are interested in bike commuting between sites might want to be aware of. First of all, the locker rooms at the Wellness Center and University Center Pool are available for bicycle commuters to shower and clean up if you have meetings at the Gables campus. And then there are bicycle racks that are reliably located all over campus for you to store your bike. And you may also want to stop by the Flipsy building because that's where the best bicycle repair stand is, and you can register your bike and get a free U-lock, which is essential for locking up and safely protecting your bike on UM's campuses. Okay. Moving on to the Commodore Trail, some of you may be familiar with this because many of us, I suppose, might be living in Coral Gables and Coconut Grove. The Commodore Trail is a series of sidewalks and routes intended to connect the Old Cutler Trail at Cocoa Plum Circle through to the Rickenbacker Causeway that goes along Main Highway and South Bayshore Ave. If we look in close at sections of this, there's generally protected multi-use paths along Main Highway, and Cocoa Walk is generally a safe area to bike and walk through. However, the tricky aspect of the Commodore Trail comes when transiting from David T. Kennedy Park up to Alice Wainwright Park and the Vizcaya Metro Rail Station. The sidewalks here are often narrow, And passing Mercy Hospital, there's very narrow shoulder for bicyclists to enter the road, and the cars are moving quickly in this area. So this is, if you're considering biking along to Rasmus either direction and want to take this route, this is a stretch to be aware of and keep in mind. However, there are a number of locally organized advocacy groups that are interested in supporting bicycle network development. These include Bike Coconut Grove and Friends of the Commodore Trail, which have proposed and are advocating for a improvement project that should run through 5 segments of the Commodore Trail that there's a petition for in these slides that you can support if you are familiar with the area and would like to see this important route enhanced and made better for the safety of its users. Lastly, if you can connect through these routes to the Rickenbacker Causeway, this is the reliable green lanes that nonetheless need to be observed with caution because of the lack of an actual protected barrier. And then the resources for bicyclists at Rasmus, there are bike racks located in the central buildings of the MTLSS and underneath the slab, as well as soon to be a full 3 sets of showers for people who can shower and change into work clothes through the day. I believe the new dive operations may have locker rooms, but don't quote me on that. For right now, the locker rooms under the MTLSS are perfectly suitable for storing clothes and changing into office wear for the day. And then to support those of us in the Rasmus or community who are commuting to Rasmus, there's the Rasmus Bike Club, which you can join by sending an email to by that link there, and you can be made aware of updates in bicycle infrastructure. And some members of the club have cited the following reasons as why they enjoy biking to Rasmus, namely exercise and health benefits, decreased anxiety and stress, and namely, especially the view from the Rickenbacker Causeway. In the past year, we've hosted these events, the Rasmus Bike Repair Station, in which we serviced 12 bicycles of people who were able to cross the causeway that day, and then the Rasmus Bike to Campus Day, where Jim Happel cooked omelets for everyone who biked in. So we hope to, in the future, when things settle down, resume these types of events to bring the community closer together and share information. More broadly, on the Gables campus, the main campus bike club organized a used bike sale in which 70 bicycles were sold in about an hour. So there's a huge demand in the community and the student community to ride bikes. And so supporting the networks and the infrastructure to make sure that people who choose to bicycle can do so safely and reliably is really important right now. So if you're interested in supporting these things, these types of initiatives, Safe Streets initiatives, you can follow the links in these slides and fill in some surveys and petitions in support of the Commodore Trail, and take a look at some of these resources from the University of Miami, Bike Safe, Bike 305 in Miami-Dade County, some other local bike advocacy groups in Coral Gables, Coconut Grove, and the city of Miami. And there's plenty of resources here, as well as some local news stories. I'd like to thank the Rasmus Earth Week Committee, the Graduate Students Association, everyone in the Rasmus Bike Club, as well as Jim Happel, Kayla, and then David and Kurt from the medical school, who've been a great source of information on all things biking. So if you have any questions, please let me know. And thank you, Kayla and the host. I think I'm gonna stop sharing and take it away. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for that amazing talk. I know I enjoy biking to Rasmus. I think you do have some, is there a question? Yeah, no, I think we are good. I think we should go to the second talk. Gio, go ahead and take it away.
All right, thanks, Kayla. Let me go ahead and get this show on the road. Thanks, Mike. That was actually really informative. I really enjoyed your presentation there. Definitely learned a lot more about biking in the Miami area than I knew before. And I've been wanting to really do that a little bit more often, but it is, you know, it's a little iffy for us Miamians. So you can understand my apprehensiveness of using it. But now that I know more about those trails, it's really great. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and cover a little bit of a different topic here as far as navigating the secondhand market. But before I start, I would like to mention a couple of side legal disclosures that I am not affiliated whatsoever, nor do I represent or receive any sort of monetary compensation from the companies or the platforms I'm going to be mentioning throughout this talk here. So needless to say, my name is Giovanni. I'm actually a native Floridian, so that's kind of a rare thing to find these days. I'm from Vero Beach, and I've lived in Miami for roughly 13 years now. Yeah, wow, it's been a long time. I'm actually a former professional actor, although I have no idea why that's even relevant. But anyway, so I actually studied aviation and aeronautics at the I. Watson School of Aviation and Aeronautics, and which I became a pilot. So that's my primary profession. And as far as any sort of relevant studies, I actually have worked in the fields of environmental conservation for a little over 5 years now, which would include working with entities and agencies such as the Student Conservation Association, the U.S. Forest Service, the National Park Service, and the Bureau of Land Management. And even more recently, so the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, where I worked as a former Florida State Park Ranger. All right, so let's get right into it. Whoops, okay. So we all know, or we have heard of the 3 R's, right? So reduce, reuse, recycle. So it's easy enough to remember them, but how often are we actually abiding by this concept on a daily basis? Or more importantly, I should say, how often are we actually paying attention to that R in the middle? In other words, the forgotten R, right? You know, a little bit like that middle child of the family. Yeah, okay. So through this discussion, I'm also going to be highlighting some ideas and sharing some tips on how to unlock the full potential of that forgotten R. Before I get there, I am going to share a couple of those boring facts and figures we all love, especially for you number nerds and pie chart weirdos out there. So I've got a little something for you here. Let's see. Oh, is it going to? There we go. All right. So a couple fun facts here. The fashion industry, if you were to buy your clothes brand new, you should probably know a couple of ugly facts first. So first of all, 20% of the world's wastewater comes primarily from the fashion industry. The fashion industry is pretty much responsible for 10% of global carbon footprint, and eventually could be projected to be responsible for roughly 25% by 2050. Industry is pretty well known for poor working conditions, which of course disproportionately affects women more. However, there's an upside. You should definitely consider secondhand, buying your clothing secondhand, because the good things that can come from that are, 72% of the customers, well, there's a lot of good things that could come from that, but there is a lot of growth in the retail market when it comes to secondhand clothing. As you can see, I have there 21%. 72% of those consumers are more likely to buy from eco-friendly sources, which is actually up from 15% from 2013, according to ThreadUp and the World Economic Forum, which is pretty impressive, and I'm happy to see that. Moving on further, I'm going to quote something from the World Economic Forum here. So not surprisingly, millennials are actually most likely the age group to embrace the trend, closely followed by boomers, which have 33% and 31% respectively buying secondhand. And then the generation that's stuck between those two, Gen X, is a long way behind, believe it or not, at 20%, with Gen Zers, the new kids on the block, at 16%. But it's actually the Gen Zer crowd where most of the growth is expected to to go up. So 1 in 3 people between the ages of 18 to 24 are actually forecast to buy secondhand items this year, let alone. Which leads us to being a little bit more aware, a little bit more responsible and sustainable in our consumerism. Let's face it, I mean, some of us have a guilty pleasure of partaking and enjoying a little retail therapy. There is absolutely nothing wrong with splurging on oneself as a pat on the back for watching every episode of Tiger King in one sitting, for example, and that's totally fine, as long as we consider incorporating ideas towards that responsible and sustainable consumerism that we're talking about, right? This is kind of where the concept of a secondhand market comes to play. You'd be absolutely right to associate thrift stores and or maybe garage sales, for example, under this category. But that second R could be further extended to include more modern web-based platforms and services, which pretty much achieve the same idea. So the ability to buy goods online has completely changed the way we consume in the 21st century. I'm pretty sure we could all recognize the interesting and sketchy things that came from using sites on eBay or Craigslist. After all, it is where I bought my very first pair of rollerblades, believe it or not. Yeah, that was a big mistake. But thankfully, some safer and more palatable options, for the lack of a better term, have been introduced as a new alternative within the last decade. Sites, more specifically along the apps on phones, such as Facebook, Marketplace, OfferUp, Etsy, and Poshmark, which, mind you, are all completely free services, have become pretty much the new go-to. Like anything else, each of these platforms have their own specialties that focus on specific items, whereas some of the other platforms I'm about to mention pretty much cover a wide gamut of items. So of course, they all have their pros and cons, which I'll go on to explain individually. So in the case of OfferUp, this is actually my personal favorite go-to platform that I quite frequently use. There's a lot of great advantages to be had by using this one. So first and foremost, safety. It's definitely far safer than most of the websites we're used to of the past. It's really user-friendly. You could pretty much find any item that you're looking for, not only within your local community, but also nationally, which is another nice feature that they've added. So if you can't find what you're looking for within your local area or even within the state, you can opt to kind of look around nationally, which OfferUp actually also allows for those sellers selling those items to ship those items to you, which is pretty nice convenience as well. So the communication system is pretty great on this particular app as well. The messaging is pretty straightforward. It allows a great protection for you on behalf of OfferUp. They even offer suggestions on not to share some of your private information, which is a nice reminder. So some of the main disadvantages, it is kind of difficult to do price comparison shopping. So if you see the example there on the right of my screenshot, you see a lot of those different items listed. Unfortunately, the prices of those items can only be found once you actually click on the specific item. So again, it just kind of makes it difficult to have that price comparison at a glance. But there are other apps that do offer that ability. In addition to that, there are ads. There are ads everywhere, let's face it, and they do tend to look a little bit like some of the listings within that app. So they do camouflage themselves a little bit. So it does become a little bit annoying, especially if you accidentally click on those links, which divert you to another web page. However, if you navigate this long enough or you practice with it, you will start to recognize what are ads and what isn't an ad, and it'll actually be listed on the bottom as an ad. So my second go-to would be, let's see, whoops, so let's move on to Facebook Marketplace. So Facebook Marketplace is my second go-to. There is definitely a price comparison tool at a glance, as you can see an example there. And there is a familiar messaging system for most of us that utilize this platform as a social media platform, which is obviously nice as well. Some of the main disadvantages with using Facebook Marketplace would be if you don't have a Facebook profile and don't utilize them as a social media platform, it's kind of difficult to use or access Facebook Marketplace, seeing as you have, I think Facebook asks that you have had a profile for roughly around 2 years to use that feature. So that's kind of a downside for those of you who are looking to expand and find different platforms to use for secondhand goods, right? And then there are fewer protective measures in place. Although, are we really surprised when it comes to Facebook? Needless to say, do your due diligence, be safe, and we'll cover more about that too later on. Etsy, by far one of my favorite apps and core platforms to use. This particular app focuses more so on local artisanal businesses. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of people who use their arts and crafts, and they hone in and take the time to really dedicate and perfect their craft to produce unique goods, primarily made out of sustainable materials, which is nice, such as glass, a lot of stoneware, so pottery, and a lot of wood carving. So it's a really nice way to support your local artisans and businesses. You can also find a lot of vintage and antique items. So if you're looking to kind of spruce up your place with that one statement piece, you'll definitely be able to find something there for you. And there's a really good transaction protection in place by using Etsy. I'm pretty sure they use PayPal. So it's nice to know that your money is safe, and in the event that something happens, you are protected in that way. So some of the main disadvantages of using Etsy, inevitably the prices do tend to be a little bit higher. But again, it goes back to you are supporting some of those artists that have taken that time and effort to really perfect that craft to provide you with a quality good. Sometimes people will pass off bulk manufactured items as handmade, so just be a little bit wary about that. Moving on to Poshmark here. So Poshmark is catered a little bit more primarily towards fashion-oriented goods. So a lot of clothing specific brands and clothing items. So you can just type in a word search and you'll be able to find those things. The buyer protection and refund policy is fantastic through Poshmark as well. So rest assured you have protections in place there. And this could actually be a real good seller opportunity for those of you who are possibly looking to kind of downsize your closet and try and get rid of some of those things, and where you don't necessarily want to just add to the problem of polluting planet Earth. So this is definitely a great opportunity for you to kind of jump in on there and tick around and get it to someone who could find a different purpose for it, a second use. Some of the main disadvantages of using Poshmark are the app is actually, for me at least, tends to be a little bit less user-friendly. So the web portal I do recommend. So just going on your laptop, that helps when it comes to using that platform. And then the shipping fees are a little bit higher than normal. So if you're willing to pay the price, then I definitely highly recommend looking through that. So let's go ahead and cover a couple pro tips that I came up with for buying secondhand. Inspect the item thoroughly. So always inspect the item thoroughly before completing that transaction or before even making a counter offer. There's always a risk that that item could just not be as described. In addition, it's important to note that depending on the item, it may no longer have a warranty. This is kind of an important thing. Sometimes those items, they won't really qualify for an extended warranty. So it's kind of good practice to maybe ask the seller whether or not that particular item you're buying from them does have an extended warranty, which could help you out, if something happens to it down the line. Avoid tire kicking and nitpicking. So extreme nitpicking, kind of like finding those flaws and using it as ammunition to reduce your price. There is definitely a time and place for particular items that you could definitely use that to your advantage. But just be careful in how you do it and how you go about it. In moderation is my rule of thumb. And of course, you want to be respectful of other people. You don't really want to kind of, put them down for an item that at the end of the day, you're the one interested and they're selling to you. So keep that in mind. Rating the seller fairly and asking them to do the same for you in return. So in OfferUp, it's one of the few apps that actually has this feature. You have the ability to sign up with a profile, which others can actually rate you, or you can rate someone you sold a good to in return. I always try and ensure that I ask the person whether I bought from them or whether I sold to them. If they could go ahead and rate me, and in return, I'll go ahead and do a fair rating. Why is this important? Well, it kind of helps you and others determine whether or not something or someone, I should say, is safe and or trustworthy. And so it pretty much just kind of protects you and other people in future purchases and or sales. So it's just kind of a nice common courtesy thing to do. So safe meeting places, I know this goes without saying. So obviously never use your own personal home or workplace as a meeting, and always meet in a public place. Bring a friend, just be safe. And lastly, never feel obligated or pressured into committing or to buying an item, even if you've made an offer. Remember, the buyer or the seller, depending on which one you're doing, you have the ability to steer the ship, okay? Don't ever feel obligated to commit into anything. If you feel like something is up, if you feel like it's just not really what you're looking for, you have the right to just say, you know what, I'm gonna have to pass on this one. So, I do have a couple of ways to promote sustainable buying. The first step would be ask yourself, who made my clothes? Demand more transparency from your favorite brand, or partake in locally organized clothing swaps. That's always an option. Step 2 would be to assess your closet and the items that you already have, and the ones that you use or maybe even don't even use on a daily basis. So know and treasure what it is that you already own. And if you find something that's pretty much of little to no use, go ahead and sell it or pass it off to someone you might know that could have a second use out of it. Give it another life. Step 3 would be to take care of your items and make them last longer. As far as clothes go, a couple of tips would be, washing smart. So that would be washing with cool water, use eco-friendly detergents, and air drying. Save yourself some energy and skip the dryer. Now, for step 4, before you dub something as useless or broken, I would encourage repairing, and or if you just can't do that or you don't feel like doing it, or if it's in still good condition, share it. It could serve a different purpose, maybe gift it. Just think twice and always consider your options before you toss something. You have lots of other options before you toss something. And my last step here would be shop less. And if you are going to shop and you're going to buy new items, buy well. Do your research. When you buy secondhand if you can. So if you see a new item that you might want, see if you can use these apps and find if someone's offering it for a cheaper price and it's secondhand. So you kind of reduce your footprint there. Obviously opt for more ethical brands if you're going to opt for a brand at all. Try and find those items, if at all, to comprise of organic materials. These items will last if you follow these steps. So my final thoughts are, now more than ever, more and more companies that produce consumer goods are finally starting to identify and recognize the need for their consumers. Through your actions, if you actually raise a voice and cast a vote, you will pressure more results from those companies, which would include fair wages, worker protections, environmental accountability, as well as product quality and sustainability. Some companies are finally following suit and have begun to implement recycling programs or even opt for those ethically sourced materials to encourage more consumer responsibility, which is great. And some of those companies I've gone ahead and listed here if you want to take a look at those. I should add one more thing. As far as items that you probably don't want to purchase as secondhand, don't feel bad if you prefer to purchase your next, mattress, toilet bowl seat, or even pair of underwear new. I totally understand that. But by using these tips that I've offered, you'll be much happier knowing that you've given a second life to an item that could have otherwise contributed to landfill or harmful pollution, all while reducing your carbon footprint, saving money, and stimulating your local economy. And honestly, what's not to like about that? If you ask me, it's pretty much a win-win, guys. So no matter how you view the idea of that second R, always remember that one, let's see here. Is it going to ruin my ending? Yeah, here we go. One person's trash is another one's treasure. So, all right, that's pretty much it for my spiel there. I just wanted to, again, give a big thanks to Kayla Bisong for this, and the Earth Week Committee for allowing me to take a part in such a great learning forum. And of course, Kelsey Malloy, she assisted me in researching it, and she pretty much showed me how much I don't know about PowerPoint. So any Q&As here? Let's see. All right. Let's wonder if you know. Okay, so I've got Emily Milton. She says, I was wondering if you know anything about or can speak on various local national thrift stores. I have heard that some are better than others, i.e. they will donate recycle items that have been in the store for a long time, while others send unsold items to landfill. Is this true? And if so, could you provide resources for finding good thrift shops? Yeah, absolutely. So some of the go-to thrift stores that we all know, such as Goodwill, and let's see, Salvation Army. Unfortunately, some of their practices, they're just so bombarded, and their facilities can't really cater to a lot of the items that they receive on a daily. So they do tend to have those unfortunate practices where they do end up going to a landfill. This is one of the reasons why I tend to kind of not support some of those local thrift stores. However, sometimes some communities, that's pretty much all they have. So if that's the case, I would highly recommend still trying to opt for secondhand and giving those second items a use to save them from going to the landfill so that they don't have to do that. As far as having different resources and finding those good thrift shops, I usually just use kind of Google Maps on my phone, I'll be honest, and I just put thrift or vintage shop, and it should pop up a couple of points. I always just click on those pinpoints to discover my local area to see if there maybe are any mom and pop shops I haven't really known about, and then kind of do a little background on them, maybe swing by the store, have a little browse, see whether or not, you know, they have items that are worth me taking a look at. So I hope that answers kind of some more things, but if you want some more, you can always reach out to me. I've included my email on the last one. So let's see, I've got another one from Allison. Amazing talk, thank you. Is there movement for fabric recycling, such as for clothes that can't be resold? Yeah. So some companies, there are available that will take your fabrics and upcycle them to something else. I kind of don't have really any at the top of my head. You'd have to do a quick Google search. I think Patagonia actually has a program that you can actually send your stuff to, but that's the problem is when you have a lot of those fabrics accumulating that you know that aren't worth selling, or probably people aren't interested in, you will have to send them off on your own dime through postal services to other companies that can make good use of it. So it's up to you whether or not you want to go that route. Now, I personally, you know, if there's maybe like small towels that you might need to clean the house, it's a good idea. Maybe take those shirts that you don't think anyone's going to use and just rip them up and always rewash them. Avoid using bleached materials such as paper towels and stuff like that. So that's a good option. Or just ask your family and friends whether or not they have any need for, you know, extra items to also do the same thing. So I hope that answers some of those questions. And yeah, it doesn't seem like we have any more. Again, feel free to reach out to me on my email. I hope you guys really enjoyed that. Once again, thank you so much, Kayla. I'll put it back to you.
Thank you, Gio. That was amazing and very informative. I think a lot of people have a lot to take away from that today. We actually had another question from Estrella talking about having a UM/Rasmus swap up. Stay tuned. I have a lot of ideas for this, including decluttering some of the info, kind of having our own thing, but I have to work out how that is feasible under the university, so stay tuned. But thank you, Gio, and thank you, Mike, for great talks today. Also, thank you for everyone joining for Earth Day Part 2, or Earth Week Part 2. We have 3 more days filled with events, including events this evening. Tomorrow we have a very awesome eco warrior, Colleen, talking about conscious consumption and how what you're eating is affecting the planet. She even has an awesome activity for you to take a look into your pantry afterwards. So we hope to see you there. And then also for our amazing sustainability panel tomorrow evening to really bring home the 50th Earth Day. So thank you everyone for attending. I hope to see more of you soon. Happy Earth Week.